wonder what's going to be in this bag. Yeah, let's open it up. What's this? Oh, yeah. Stoeger STR9. All right. Happy 2024, everyone. Woohoo! Hot diggity dog. Well, I have to say over here at Cranky Gun Reviews, early in 2024, we are starting the year off right. I'm already getting a good jump start on my list of guns that I said I wanted this year with the STR9. Now, I've said it before, I have other hobbies. I work on and buy and restore and use vintage garden tractors. And just so happens a couple of weeks ago, a buddy of mine called me up and said he wanted to buy a tractor off me. So when I sold the tractor, I put a little bit of money aside, and I've been saving it for a chance when I get to go into my favorite local gun shop, which is Four Seasons up in Woburn, Massachusetts. They have massive selection of guns. They buy pallets of guns at a time. They always have the best deals. Well, when I was in there a few weeks ago, they said they had some Stoegers in stock, and I looked at them, and it just so happened that the ones they had in stock are not your run-of-the-mill base model ones that came out a year or two ago. This was actually a optics-ready version. So this particular one, as I open up the box here, you can see I have 2 additional back straps. I have an additional magazine, so this one actually came with 2. The older ones only came with 1 magazine. This also came with 4 or 5 different plates to put optics on the top of this, and they're actually steel plates. They're not plastic. Comes with some screws. So right out of the box, it's pretty much ready to go with your standard footprints for your red dots. Let's see, what else is in the box? Oh, a speed loader. That's cool. This one's a little bit flimsy, but I think it'll do the job. It's very similar to what you would get with a Glock. Comes with a little Allen wrench, which I assume is for the sights probably, but I haven't really messed around with it too much. And look at this handgun. You guys, I gotta say, this gun, like the Taurus's, this looks way better than the price point of this gun suggests. I mean, look at this thing. The finish on it looks really good. The frame looks really good. Let's take a look at it in a little deeper detail. So I'm going to pull this rubber band off there. I think a lot of companies are doing this now. It makes it look a little bit better. It tells you what the model is when it's inside the box or in the display at the store. And just looking this thing over right off the bat, I am very, very impressed with this. The trigger on this guy is unbelievable. It has a very Glock-like trigger, flat face trigger with the little dingus in the middle of it. The reset on it is short. It's not a super crisp reset, but it's very short and positive. And has the undercut underneath the trigger guard for your finger. Again, this gun looks like it copied off of somebody else's homework, and looking at various different trends over the years in the industry, they have really taken a lot of positive things from it. Has a stainless steel guide rod for the recoil spring, which is always nice. The magazine release on this is exceptional. It sticks out plenty far. It's easy to use. The takedown on this is exactly like a Glock. You pull the slide back, pull down on the little takedown pins, and then slide the slide right off the front of the gun. Inside of this thing, again, very much like a Glock. There you can see your stainless steel recoil spring guide again. And again, everything inside of this thing looks pretty high quality. It feels really good in the hand. Like I said, that trigger is amazing. It really is. It feels great. Here we get a look at the top of the slide where those optics mounts go, and underneath this there's just some divots cut in it, and again, you put one of the adapter plates on top of the gun, screw it down, and then you attach your red dot to the top of the adapter plates. And because they're steel, I'm sure this is going to have a very solid mount on there. Standard 3-dot white sights. They're more than ample. They're very bright. And the slide release on this thing actually works very well. The Glock I have, my SD9VEs, the slide release on it is not always that great. This comes with 3 different back straps. It came with the medium one installed on the gun. It has a small one and a large one. For me, the medium one feels just about right in the palm of my hand. It has plenty of stippling on the back of it. The sides of it are pretty aggressive stippling, but they're not to the point where it hurts your hand. And it does have those finger grooves on the front of the grip on this. So I guess kind of like your Gen 3 Glocks where they had the finger grooves, even though people hated them, sometimes they're really nice. This has a loaded chamber indicator on the top of the barrel. The older models actually had a flag that would stick up. I like this one better just because it has a little hole on the top of the barrel. The slide serrations on this are more than ample. And again, that slide release actually works like a slide release. It's not just a slide stop. You can actually drop the slide on this thing with one hand. Works out really well. So far, I'm very impressed with the features on this gun and how it's put together, the function of it. Everything so far seems to be pretty good. And it does seem to be a pretty good value with 2 magazines, 3 back straps, a speed loader. I mean, for a gun that's made in Turkey, the quality seems to be much better than the price point for this gun would suggest. Now, if we compare this side by side to a few of my other budget 9mm, or maybe not even so much my budget 9mm, but some of my other 9mm, you can see here on the top right, I have my Glock Model 23, which again is a 40 Smith & Wesson, but I have a 9mm barrel for it. I actually have my SD40 VE out here, even though it's the same thing as the SD9 VE. I just wanted to use it for comparison. Then you have the Stoeger there. And then last but not least, the Taurus. And again, if you look at the Stoeger and the Taurus side by side and you feel them both in your hand, as much as I love the Taurus, and that was a fantastic deal for $250, I think the Stoeger's even a little bit better. Now this is a little bit of a holster compatibility test. This is just a Kydex belt slide holster that I got off eBay for about, I don't know, 24, 28 bucks. I think it's a place called Infused Kydex or something like that. They're out of Florida. And I bought this for my SD9 and my SD40 VE. So very nice and tight in there. Works great. Locks up on the front of the trigger guard. Nice and tight for the SD pistols. Doesn't work so much with my Sigma because this has a squared off trigger guard and the Sigma has a more round trigger guard, so it won't work with the old Sigmas. But with the SD9 VE, the SD40 VE, and I expect the SD9 2.0 works fine. My Glock Model 23. Nice and tight. It's a little bit looser on the barrel because the slide's a little bit shorter on the Glock than it is with that one. But I've carried it in this and it works really well. Again, locks up on the front of the trigger guard. Nice and tight in there. Works pretty good. Now the Stoeger, it'll fit, it'll go in, but the front of the trigger guard here is a little bit narrower. So when it goes in, it's a little bit loose. Doesn't quite grab it as much as I'd like to. Could be used in a pinch. I wouldn't want to jump around a lot because it's not a real good tight retention on there. Obviously, if I had my belt on this, it would be pulling in on the Kydex a little bit. Might be a little bit tighter, but you could use it in a pinch. And then again, Taurus G3C actually works in the same holster. So just goes to show you how close in design all of these guns really are. They can all kind of share the same holster. This is probably one of the closest copies to a Glock that I've seen yet as far as functionality, design, and everything else. Now, obviously, the slide serrations and everything on this are different, and this is a brand new manufacturer. This is, I don't know, from the mid-90s. It's a pretty old, I think it's a Gen 2 Model 23. So the generations of the two guns are very different. But if you look at the shape of the trigger guards, has that little hook on here, which again is reminiscent of the 1990s, when they used to teach you to have your grip with your forward finger pulling in on that trigger guard. So very similar. Even has, you know, some stippling on the front of that. Again, the trigger guard on this Stoeger is a little bit narrower, but very similar in shape and design. Now, one of the things that's nifty, or that's, I should say, different about a Glock, when you pull the trigger doesn't spring back forward until you rack the slide and you release it, and then the trigger springs back forward. So the SD model pistols do not have that feature. So when you rack the slide and you pull the trigger automatically springs forward every single time. So again, that's a difference between them. The Stoeger is more like the Glock, where when you pull the trigger, it stays back. When you reset it, it pops forward. So again, showing that the Stoeger is very close in functionality to the Glock. Now let's look at the slides. All right, so side by side on the slides, I mean, it's the same picture. I mean, it's the same picture. I almost wonder if the Stoeger slide will work. Well, not quite. It's close, not quite the same. Yeah, it's not going to work. But the inside design of these things is pretty much exactly the same. Then you look at the frames, pretty much the same picture. The shape of the extractor on this is a little different. And again, this is a 40 frame, this is a 9mm frame, so the shape of the ejector, I should say, not the extractor, is different. But everything else in there is pretty much exactly the same. So it's funny that in the 90s, Smith & Wesson got sued by Glock for likeness and making a gun that was very similar, when now the patents on these guns have expired. New companies like Stoeger, who's based in Turkey, is making a very similar pistol with almost exactly the same internals and the same functionality. Pretty interesting. So based on the feedback that I've heard from people that I trust, I spoke with Justin over at Buckeye Ballistics in depth about this, and I have a buddy that worked in a gun shop. Everybody at the shop that I purchased this from, everybody says that this is the best Glock knockoff that you can possibly buy, at least for the price point of this gun. Now, today is the second day of February 2024, and I bought this brand new for $249. Same price I paid for my Taurus G3C. And again, even though this thing is made in Turkey, the build quality on this gun is so good. I mean, this feels better than my Smith & Wesson SD series pistols, better than the Taurus. I really think that the quality and the feel of this thing is almost better than a Gen 2 or Gen 3 Glock, and it's less than half the cost. I was going to buy one of these last year, and I'm glad I waited a little bit longer, because last year when they came out, they didn't have the optics ready cut, and they only came with one magazine, and they were around $299, I believe. So the cost keeps dropping. They keep adding more features and more accessories with these guns. Therefore, the value just keeps getting better and better. Now, I know seeing this on my channel right now, it's not news to anybody. It's not a brand new gun, but I never buy anything right when it comes out, typically, because I always want to get it, 6 months, a year after it comes out. A lot of times I buy things used so I can save a little bit of money. But in this particular case, waiting an extra year allowed me to get a better model with the optics cut and an extra magazine for a lower cost. So $249, fantastic value. It may be the best value for a Glock knockoff pistol that's out there right now. Thanks again for watching Cranky Gun Reviews. Have a great day. God bless America. Make sure you support your two-way rights. Get out there and shoot. And you remember, if someone asks you to give up some of your freedom for the greater good, remind them that freedom is the greater good. And I look forward to taking this out to the range and taking some range footage with it so I can put that video up as soon as possible.